Hello, Silly Moustache here. I'm going to talk to you about guitars without any guitars. In replying to my video about opening up or breaking in acoustic guitars, Benjamin Earle wrote, "I'm enjoying your discussion about the technical aspects of guitars and ergonomics. I'm starting out with guitar and have found your videos interesting and informative. Thank you. I have 3 questions. I wanted to ask your opinion about guitar choices." This is an interesting one. Number 2, several sources suggest choosing a guitar based primarily on sound. But after watching your video, the one I mentioned above, I wonder if the sound of the guitar at the time of purchase may not be so critical if it's going to open up with use. Question 3. I want to buy the best guitar that I can so as not to waste money upgrading, etc. And he'd like to hear my thoughts on this. Well, this was a real challenge. It's taken me a lot of time and a lot of takes to do this, but I'm reducing this because the last attempt took nearly half an hour, and that's too long. So let's take these bit by bit, and I'm going to answer these questions considering the place on your guitar playing journey that you might be, wherever. So please remember, this is one man's opinion, albeit based on an acoustic guitar buying, learning, making mistakes and making good judgments and things and playing over some 50 years. So his first question, I wanted to ask your opinion about guitar choices. Obviously, I cannot tell anyone what is best for you, but for the relative beginner, there are products marketed to entry-level, beginner entry-level, that are, in my opinion, unsuitable for purpose. Your first guitar or guitars will be for learning, not for performing. You will mostly do this seated, maybe on a sofa or a couch, and at home alone or with a teacher. Now, I've looked at entry-level offerings from one of the larger music stores in the UK and looked at items from £80 to £500. The first thing I noticed was body sizes. Out of 180 offerings, there were about 15 that weren't either dreadnoughts, jumbos, or similar sized large bodies. Large bodied instruments are not ideal for learning. They're not ideal for sitting down, as many people on many guitar forums frequently grumble about pains in their shoulders and back and things like that. You also need to learn playing posture. You need to learn to play the guitar. You'll want to know some chords and how those chords work, but you'll do it with your shoulders bent and your backs bent and things, and it'll start hurting, and with a great big guitar it'll feel unwieldy and uncomfortable. Buy a smaller one. Buy a comfortable one. Right, another point. Laminated tops and HPL. These are often used in entry-level instruments. Laminates are effectively plywood. HPL is a wood fibre or paper soaked in phenolic resin. I don't know what that is, but it's not wood. Neither react to resonating as does real wood. So if you buy one, just to start with, assume that you'll have little or no resale value. But it might be a nice gift to give away to a son or daughter or friend or charity once you've moved up, which kind of brings me into the other question, but not quite yet. Built-in electrics. A lot of those entry ones had built-in electrics. As a learner, you are unlikely to need to amplify your first instrument to enable a large audience to hear you play. Remember, you're learning. For instance, if you buy a £500 guitar with built-in electrics, you're really buying a £250 to £300 guitar plus electrics that you may never actually use. Note, should you require bugging that guitar up at a later date, that's another term for adding in electric pickups, retrofitting pickups can easily be done. Almost any music shop can do that, and there are a vast different alternatives. My third point is possibly controversial. Again, my opinion. Cutaways. Are you really likely to want to play above the octave while you're learning? My advice would be to avoid cutaways, because I don't know for sure, but I suspect that they reduce the saleability anyway. Quite a lot of us acoustic players dislike cutaways, and they're usually unnecessary. So my advice is to avoid all of those three aspects if you can. Not too large a body, try and avoid laminated tops and HPL if you can, and really avoid built-in electrics and cutaways. As you progress, your ear develops and your tonal understanding will improve along with your playing skills. You may not realise it, but you might get to the point where your £80 to £500 guitar will start sounding less than ideal, and you may have identified aspects such as the neck shape, the scale length, the body depth, the fretboard width that are unsatisfactory to you, that are holding you back. Well, it's time to go shopping again. Benjamin said, several sources suggest choosing a guitar based primarily on sound. But after watching your video, I wonder if the sound of the guitar at the time of purchase may not be so critical if it is going to open up with use. Right, point one. You've heard of Martin guitars, of course. I've heard Chris Martin IV say that when you buy a new Martin, that's the worst it's ever going to sound. And it's true. I'm positive, I'm convinced, I'm sure, that most good guitars improve with age, but mostly with usage. By the way, there's absolutely nothing wrong with buying a new guitar that sounds fine from the outset. You may well have found a gem and possibly a life partner. But you need to work a new guitar. It will improve if you play it and teach it how to resonate. Teach it how to respond to the way that you play. You, the buyer and the player, need to put a lot of effort in opening up a guitar. Now, a light fingerstyle player may take far longer to get that instrument to sound wondrous than a heavy old strummer like me. A friend of mine, a guitar maker friend of mine, used to give me his guitars when he'd first finished them and asked me to play them for about 3 weeks before he told that the buyer was that the guitar was finished, because he said I opened up guitars well. It's very flattering. I don't know whether it's true or not. There are ways to speed this opening up process. You know, the tone right, or to subject the guitar to continuous sound by leaning it up against a loud radio or TV speaker or whatever. But the best way is to play it and play it and play it and play it. Although theoretically you can play any style on any kind of guitar, those many differing shapes, sizes and designs were developed mostly in the earlier part of the 20th century for different purposes and playing styles. This is where choosing a guitar make, style, size to suit your style will benefit you, and it takes time and effort. A light fingerstylist will sound better and get a better response from a smaller, lightly built guitar than a large, heavily built rhythm guitar like a Dreadnought or a Jumbo. A sweet parlour or even a triple O or OM style will simply not cut it in a bluegrass jam. He says, I want to buy the best guitar that I can so as not to waste money upgrading, etc. It's a noble thought, and I understand the wisdom of buy cheap, buy twice. But this assumes that you've already learnt exactly what make, body size, neck size, tone woods, finish styles that you'll need for your playing style for life. I have a friend who is a gigging singer-songwriter, and he now owns my D35 that I bought in 1975, and it's only the third guitar he's ever had in his life. It took me 25 years to find my ideals, plural. Practically, you will probably change your instruments a number of times as your guitar journey progresses. So here's the message. Learn to know what your playing style requires. Learn to know what neck, fretboard shape, neck profile, body size best suits your style and your hands. Learn to know what body style, body size best suits your style, music form, and your own body shape and your ways of playing. And that's all I have to say on this. So, Benjamin, I'm sorry it took some time to reply to you, but I hope these ideas help. And to everybody else that's just beginning to start guitar, or if you have a friend who needs advice on this, please consider passing these ideas along. So if you have been, thanks for listening. Bye.